Your love is the best part, love is the best part. Your love is the best part, love is the best part. Even if it all falls apart, your love is the best part, love is the best part.
Well, for me, I was excited to marry my opposite. I felt like I was in my 20s, but I felt like I was in my 30s. I'd lived a lot of life and been through a lot of things, so I wanted somebody who was positive and more stable than I was. I was kind of moody and kind of visionary and romantic, idealistic, and so I wanted somebody with their feet on the ground and positive about life and simple, if you will, sort of viewed life in a simple way. And so I was really excited about those attributes that I saw in Cheryl, and the ones that I wanted her to be different, and I figured I'd just change her. Yeah. I just go on a home improvement project, and my wife would be the project, and I'd fix her, and it would all be good. Yeah.
My expectations were that I was married a very godly man. I was super excited about living our life together for Jesus, and just being happy together. I mean, I loved him. I thought he was great. I enjoyed our time together. I knew Mark really encouraged me to pursue God more, because the improvement side, I'm like, yes, I can have more. So I loved what he brought to me as well. Like, wow, there's so much more that I wasn't even thinking about. And so I was really excited about that.
When was your guys' expectations, especially with what Mark was saying, like when was that when did that come into affirmation, or when was it in conflict? And like, how long did that take, or what did that look like in those formative years of like, we're putting together a marriage and a family and a house?
Yeah.
Well, for me, it was about after the first 6 months.
Wow.
After the first 6 months, I realized that I couldn't change Cheryl. I still tried for years.
A lot.
But there was something in me, and that actually caused me to think, I don't know if I can be in this marriage. So I can't get her to be the person I need her to be so I can be happy, which of course sounds very selfish, and it was, because it was about me, it was about my happiness. But I thought, if I can't get her to change in these areas, I don't think I can do this. So already in the first year, I don't think I was seriously thinking about divorce, but I was thinking, I don't know if this, I was kind of mulling all that over. And I remember I went to a friend and I said, the way I see it, there's 3 choices. I can either stay married and be miserable, or somehow things can get better, which I don't know how they can, or we need to get a divorce. And he said, Mark, knowing you, there's actually only 2 choices. You can't leave. Things can't be the way they are, because you're not that kind of guy. You won't leave things the way they are. Things either need to get better or you need to be done. And you can't be done. So this thing needs to get better. So that gauntlet was laid down in year 1.
Good friend.
Yeah.
And so that sort of got me on a whole different way of thinking. And that's probably when I became a personal house of prayer.
That's for sure.
I spent thousands of hours
hours
walking, praying, seeking God, just morning, noon, and night, just saying, God, how do I do this thing called marriage and be happy with somebody that is amazing but isn't everything I want her to be right now? And what do I do with that? Because I had always approached life like it could be fixed, it could be changed, and now all of a sudden I'm like, this isn't working because it's hurting the person that I love, but I'm not having all my needs met, so what do I do with all this? So that was a very important, difficult time that I was in.
I was kind of thrown. I was like, what? I sort of didn't realize it was that big of a deal. I'm like, okay, we're just newly married. Yeah, the first year of marriage there's some bumps, and there were definitely quite a few bumps. And so I was confused. I'm like, wait, what's happening? Oh, you're not happy? I really genuinely did not understand really because it was pain for him. I didn't really understand that it was that painful, because I was like, wow, I'm in love with you. I think you're great. What's wrong? And so it was hard for me. It caused me a lot of pain, and like, wow, what's wrong with me? Am I not good enough? So I had to kind of work through those issues. For me, I just really focused in on just the reality that I didn't ever have to like work for God's love. Like that's what got me through. It's like, Lord, I know Mark's wanting me to change, and I know there are areas that I need to change, and some things I think he may be crazy on, which is normal, but I knew that I had to get my love like from the Father, and I really did. I went to God in prayer, like, God, you have to help me, because I can't change fast enough, and I don't even know if I necessarily need to change in some of the areas that Mark's asking me to. So I needed that connection with him, or I would have just gone crazy. And so I feel like I shifted my expectations from, I cannot meet all of Mark's needs, but Lord, you can meet my needs right now. And so that's how I coped with it. It was very hard and very painful, because it just comes against you as a person. You know, it's like, well, what's wrong with me? But, you know, now we've been married almost 28 years, and just looking back, you know, that was a very difficult time. When I got pregnant with Audrey, God really spoke to my heart, and he said, she's going to be a sign of where you've come from. It's like looking at your daughter will show you the growth and the change. And now, you know, she's 25 years old, and she is serving God with her whole heart, a missionary, just loves Jesus. And it is a sign of what, if you don't quit, look at all the good that can come. I realized that Mark was going through a lot and trying to process out loud a lot, and sometimes his language was not right and very painful. But rather than attacking the language that he was using, I just tried, and we still do this, tried to hear behind what he was saying. And so we really committed to doing that, and even in our leading together, we do that too.
I think learning to lead, and it depends how you see marriage. Like a lot of leaders see, and this gets into some theology, but a lot of leaders see, you know, the husband's the head of the wife, which is what the Bible says, but for them that means that they make the decisions. So that becomes a problem, because then you have a voiceless wife, basically. And so somehow we have to we have to be two powerful people that empower one another without being diminished ourselves. So one of the speed bumps in leading together and being strong people in a marriage together is to make room for each other to be strong.
Yeah.
And for us, that's meant a lot of things. I mean, not only validating each other's reality, but, you know, not using all or nothing language. There's just so many ways that we can help each other be leaders. So all or nothing language, of course, is, you know, you always, you never. And it's a conversation stopper, and it invalidates growth. And it basically says all the progress you've made, all the things you've done that are good and right, I refuse to acknowledge those.
It's hard.
And so it sets a marriage back. We're not perfect at it, but we're a lot better. And that's a constant theme in most marriages, I think.
I think too, recognizing that there are passages in marriage, that's a really helpful thing. Like when your, you know, kids are babies, infants, and how that is. And then, you know, 5 years down the road, it changes a bit. And then they're in school, and, you know, so recognizing those kind of milestone passages was really helpful for us. And when there's a big passage in your marriage, you have to renegotiate. So it's not, everything doesn't always, it's not all the same for 50 years. You know, it's a renegotiating. Okay, well, what does that mean? And what does that look like? And I might have more time here. I might have less time here. And how does that work with us?
And to be honest, that happened because I read a book called Passages of Marriage.
Years ago.
So I recommend that for every couple.
Wow.
It really helps.
Yeah, and it really explains things. It just gives language to what you're feeling, but you don't know why you're feeling that way. When Mark got hired on staff at the church that he was on staff for a year, and then they sent us out to plant a church, so then we became the senior leader. So for a year he was on staff, and the pastor's wife came to me. One of the pastor's wives, because there were several, there was like 5 pastor's wives. So now I was in the pastor's wife club. And so this one younger mom, same age as me, came up to me and she's like, "Welcome to the life with no husband." And I was all, wow. I mean, that's what she said, and she was really serious. And so I was like, wow, that's sad, you know? And that sort of set my expectation, but I didn't feel right about that. And so because we talk a lot about things, we kind of talked about that. And then I think for several years even, I recognized that wow, the church ministry can become a real mistress to Mark, because he is finding needs met there. He's working a ton, and so when I recognized that, I actually had to forgive. I mean, this is real life. I had to forgive the church for taking part of my husband that I wasn't willing to give, but I did give. And so I think for me personally, that was where in the early years of our marriage and ministry, just recognizing I can't be angry at people, I can't be angry at the church. I love the church. And so having a healthy view of the church was really good for us, because
That's a lifesaver.
Because a lot of women they resent the church. They resent the people, but we have always embraced, and we've had so many people live with us. Our kids grew up in the church. It's just.
Well, I'd like to speak to that.
Yeah.
I think one of the keys for me is the balance, is running from rest. That's Heidi's phrase. But running from rest means two things to me. One, it means that you have to rest, and your family has to be before ministry, and you have to have a date night, and you have to have. I don't think you have to have a date night per se, not a legalistic thing, but there has to be time set aside, right? But I also think that a lot of families take that and then they become sort of aloof in ministry and lazy in ministry. And I don't think that's the answer, because I think that produces more lukewarm Christianity, which we don't need. But the answer isn't to burn out either, so we do need to guard time and have margins on the white space on the page. But the other thing is that we have to go hard. I find that sometimes when we're not doing well, like we're stressing and we're upset at people, we need to love more. So it's a little counterintuitive. I'm not saying give 24/7 to ministry per se, but I'm saying sometimes we're just we're not doing well anywhere. Our family's not doing well, and ministry's not doing well. And so the natural knee-jerk reaction is to pull back from ministry, and that needs to happen in a way. But also we need to go love people even better and go lower, because I find that over the years, and we've done that, when we've laid our lives down even more, we've found freedom. And then that helps our marriage, it helps our hearts. Because if you're not happy inside, and you think that by pulling back you're going to be happier, and you keep pulling back, actually you become a self-absorbed person. And so ministry becomes a scapegoat for being selfish. And you can't, because you've got a calling on your life, you cannot check out from your calling. You can check out from a ministry appointment, but you can't leave your calling, because your calling is 24/7. That doesn't mean you have to be on call 24/7, but it does mean that you're called 24/7. So there can't be a time where you just say, I'm just going to get drunk and I'm not going to care about people. You can't do that, because you're always called. And so I think running from rest for me has been it's been our salvation, because sometimes the answer is, like Jesus said to his disciples, let's go away and rest a while. Other times, and what happened right then? People showed up right when he was ready to rest. And what does it say? He felt compassion, and he went lower still, and he served them even harder. When he wanted to rest, John the Baptist just got beheaded. He needed some emotional space. But he didn't get bitter. He didn't say, tell those guys to get out of here, this is my family time. He just gave himself, and probably came up with some other rest time later. So I don't think he neglected his rest, but I think he just went hard after loving people, which is different than going hard after ministry. Ministry can become this entity, which includes, corporation and website, but if it's people, and it's like, how can you stop loving people? You got to love people, and you got to love people better as the years go on. So you never stop loving people, you love people even more. When I find that we've tried to pull back in the name of family, because God never called us to have a focus on the family, He called us to have a family with a focus. And so we are a family with a focus, and we want to be on fire for Him. We don't want family to put out our fire. We want family to be solid so that the fire can grow. And ministry is not even the issue, it's just loving God and loving people. Your spouse is always asking you, am I first? That's the big question each of the people in the marriage want to know. Am I first?
Especially in ministry.
Yeah. And, for years, well, I wouldn't say 4 years. I'd say there were periods over the years where Cheryl was not first. I don't want to say that. I feel bad saying that. I wish that wasn't true. I wish I didn't have that, be true of my life. But there were times where she wasn't first. But when I got a hold of that question, I said, okay, Cheryl's asking, am I first? And can I give an honest answer? Can I say that you're first? Can I look at you and say you're first? You know, I can look at you now and say you're first, and I think you can look at me and say, I know that I'm first. Can you say that?
Absolutely, I know that.
Yeah. But there were times where she couldn't say that. And that's when a marriage is in trouble. Doesn't matter how much time you have, doesn't matter what the schedule is, doesn't matter how busy you are. If she doesn't feel first,
Or non-busy.
or non-busy, you could be laying at home and have her. I could be home every night of the week and she's still not first. So it's not about. I'm not saying it doesn't relate to time. Time is important.
Yeah.
But if my wife knows that she's first, she has a lot more grace for me during those busy times, and I don't try to take it. I don't milk them. I don't try to take advantage of them because I'm not. She's first. I'm not trying to do anything. You know, it just happens to be, and we both recognize the demand, and that's why two people who are both busy can have a fantastic marriage.
Yeah.
Because they've decided you're first no matter what.
The crazy part is we've interviewed so many people now, and I think the Perrys just had so many ridiculous tools. It was like, I was really surprised.
I think what I was really taken by is they mentioned seasons and how your marriage goes into seasons. And although I understand that reality, I'd never really put that consciously. I do that with the kids. Like with the kids now, after you have a few of them, you start realizing like, oh, by the time you have your third, you realize like, oh, this is a season. It's not going to last forever, which, you know, I never related to marriage though. And now I feel like we've gone through a few seasons. We're just entering the season of like, oh, what's it like to have kids in school all day?
Yeah.
That actually changes our marriage.
Yeah, because you actually have time to talk and think.
It frees me up in a new way.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that is a great time to reevaluate.
On top of that, it's like once you start having time to communicate, I think he also mentioned a couple really awesome tools, like the thing about words, like, what did he call them? They were words that were like not all or nothing kind of words, that were just basically you're not able to just say all or nothing. It's not a black and white. And I think when he even mentioned that about,
are you mentioning that because I do that?
Sort of, actually.
I do that.
I wasn't going to say it that way, but you're more than welcome to bring it up for yourself. I just feel like I get that. Like, I'm like, oh, man, that makes a lot of sense, because it really does. It's a way of shutting down a conversation without being able to go, well, you can't take it any farther because it's all this or all that. I think that they were brilliant. I thank God that we really got to interview them, because I think some of the tools there were invaluable. Some of the books they mentioned, I think like they were perfect for us to be able to interview right now. So
Yeah.
Even if it all falls apart, your love is the best part, love is the best part. Your love is the best part, love is the best part.